The massive chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished stone, its walls carved with symbols from 12 different alien civilizations. Ambassador Kate Morrison stood at the center of the circular floor, her small human figure dwarfed by the towering seats that surrounded her. Each seat held a representative from the most powerful species in the galaxy, and right now, all of them were staring at her with what she could only describe as amused contempt. Kate adjusted her full diplomatic uniform and activated the translation device clipped to her collar. The soft blue glow indicated that her words would be converted into the native languages of every species present. She had practiced this speech for months, knowing that everything depended on getting it exactly right. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. "I stand before you today to deliver the final warning from the Terran Federation regarding our territorial claims." A sound that might have been laughter rippled through the chamber. It came from Zexthul, the primary representative of the Valian Empire. His tall, elegant form was covered in scales that shifted color with his emotions, and right now they displayed the deep purple that indicated amusement among his people. "Another warning," Zexthul said, his voice carrying the musical quality typical of his species. "Tell me, Ambassador Morrison, how many warnings does this make now?" Kate kept her expression neutral, though her heart was racing. "This is the third and final warning, Counselor Zexthul. The Terran Federation has claimed a 50 light-year radius around Earth as sovereign human space. Any unauthorized entry into this territory will be considered an act of war." The chamber erupted in what Kate could only describe as alien laughter. The sound was unsettling, a mixture of clicks, whistles, and harmonics that made her skin crawl. She had heard it before during her previous visits, but it never got easier to endure. Crickster of the Hegemony leaned forward in his seat, his 4 arms gesturing dismissively. His species resembled massive crustaceans, and his shell bore the scars of countless battles. "War?" he said, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to come from multiple throats. "Young human, your species has been part of galactic civilization for barely 2 centuries. You possess perhaps 50 worlds, most of them barely habitable. Your ships are slow, your weapons primitive, and your population insignificant. What makes you think you can threaten us?" Kate had expected this reaction. The intelligence briefings had prepared her for it. Still, hearing it spoken aloud in such a dismissive tone made her jaw clench. "The Terran Federation is not making threats, Counselor Crickster. We are stating facts. Human space is closed to unauthorized traffic. This is not negotiable." War Commander Thekmar of the Korthax Supremacy rose from his seat, his massive frame casting a shadow over the chamber. His species were warriors by nature, resembling armored bears with opposable thumbs and a natural gift for violence. "Little human," he growled, "I have conquered 17 worlds in my lifetime. I have reduced 3 civilizations to ash. Your entire species numbers less than the population of a single Korthax breeding world. You speak of war as if you understand what the word means." The other council members voiced their agreement in various alien languages. Kate recognized a few words here and there from her diplomatic training, but the overall message was clear. They thought humanity was a joke. "Furthermore," Zexthul continued, "your claim is unreasonable. 50 light years represents thousands of star systems. Many of these systems contain resources that the galaxy needs. You cannot simply declare them off limits because you happen to evolve on a nearby world." Kate reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small data pad. She had been hoping it would not come to this, but the Council was leaving her no choice. "The Terran Federation has provided detailed star charts showing exactly which systems we consider part of human space. These boundaries are non-negotiable. Any violation will result in immediate military response. The laughter that followed was even louder than before. Counselor Vex High of the Crystalline Collective spoke next, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Military response? Dear human, your entire fleet consists of what? Perhaps 100 vessels? The collective alone maintains over 3,000 ships. The combined might of the Galactic Council could sweep your species from the yaw. Stars in a matter of days. That may be, Kate said quietly, but the cost would be higher than you imagine. This statement seemed to surprise them. The laughter died down, replaced by curious murmurs. Zextil's scales shifted to a pale yellow, indicating confusion. Cost? He asked. What cost could there possibly be? Your ships are museum pieces. Your colonies are scattered and poorly defended. Your homeworld has minimal orbital fortifications. We have observed your military exercises, Ambassador Morrison. We know exactly what you are capable of. Kate allowed, herself a small smile. With respect, Counselor Zextil, you know what we have chosen to show you. Nothing more. The chamber fell silent. This was not the response they had expected from the supposedly primitive human representative. Kate could feel the tension building as the council members exchanged glances. Crickster was the first to break the silence. Are you suggesting that? Humanity has been deceiving the Galactic Council about your military capabilities. I am suggesting that underestimating humans has historically been a fatal mistake, Kate replied. We have provided clear warnings about our territorial boundaries. We have explained the consequences of violating those boundaries. Whether you choose to believe us or not is entirely up to you. War Commander Thekmar slammed one of his massive fists on the arm of his chair. Enough of this nonsense. If humans want to play games, then we will show them the price of defying the Galactic Council. I propose immediate military action to establish monitoring stations throughout their claimed territory. The vote was swift and unanimous. 12 alien civilizations formally decided to ignore humanity's warnings and proceed with military occupation of human space. Kate watched the proceedings with the detached calm of someone who had expected exactly this outcome, but as the council members filed out of the chamber, making plans for their joint military operation, Kate activated her personal communicator. The message was encrypted with quantum keys that would take the aliens centuries to break, even if they bothered to intercept it. Terra Command, this is Ambassador Morrison. The Council has voted to proceed with military action. Operation Ghostwatch is authorized. They took the bait. The response came immediately from Admiral Lisa Brooks, commander of humanity's true military forces. Understood, Ambassador. All units are standing by. Let them come. Kate gathered her diplomatic materials and prepared to leave the chamber. Behind her, she could hear the aliens making their plans, discussing fleet movements and military strategies with the casual confidence of predators who had never encountered a prey species that could fight back. They would learn the truth soon. Enough. Humanity had been waiting for this moment for 2 centuries, preparing for it with the patience of a species that had spent millions of years learning to hunt in the dark. The warnings had been ignored, just as they had known they would be now. The galaxy would discover what humans did to uninvited guests in their territory. 3 weeks after the council session, War Commander Thekmar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Worldbreaker, watching the final preparations for what the aliens called Operation Harmony. The massive dreadnought stretched 2 kilometers. From bow to stern, its hull bristling with enough firepower to level a continent. Around it, nearly 200 ships from 6 different species formed the largest military fleet assembled in galactic history. Thekmar's claws traced patterns on the tactical display, showing the formation of his forces. The Korthak Supremacy had contributed 50 warships, each one a veteran of successful campaigns against primitive worlds. The Valian Empire brought 40 vessels, their elegant curves hiding devastating plasma weapons. The Hegemony added 30, heavy cruisers, built like floating fortresses and nearly indestructible. The other 3 species contributed smaller but equally deadly contingents. Status report, Bekmar growled to his second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Grektar, who had served in 12 previous conquests. All ships report ready for jump, War Commander. The humans have maintained their defensive positions around their outer colonies. Our scouts confirm minimal fleet presence in the target zones. Bekmar's massive head nodded with satisfaction. The intelligence reports had been consistent for months. Humanity possessed perhaps 80 combat vessels, most of them concentrated, around Earth and their major colonies. Their technology was at least 50 years behind galactic standards, their crews inexperienced in real warfare. This would be less a battle than a demonstration. Excellent. Signal the fleet. We jump in 5 minutes. Meanwhile, 16 light-years away on Mars, Dr. Alex Carter sat in the climate-controlled environment of Olympus Research Station, watching the alien fleet through sensors that the enemy could not detect. The quantum monitoring array had been tracking their preparations for weeks, recording every ship movement, every communication, every tactical decision. They're about to jump, Alex announced to the secure communication link that connected him to dozens of hidden facilities throughout human space. Fleet composition matches our projections. 200 ships, standard galactic formations, no surprises. The response came from Colonel Maya Rodriguez, speaking from a location that did not officially exist. Understood, Doctor. All Ghost Protocol stations are active. The welcome party is ready. Alex smiled as he watched the alien fleet disappear into hyperspace. They had no idea what they were jumping into. For 2 centuries, humanity had been preparing for exactly this moment, building weapons and defenses that the galaxy had never seen. The aliens thought they were attacking a primitive species with crude technology. They were about to learn the difference between what humans showed the galaxy and what humans kept hidden. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human space, their sensors immediately beginning to scan for targets. What they found seemed to confirm their expectations. A handful of human patrol ships were detected near the boundary, along with some mining stations and cargo vessels. Nothing that suggested serious military resistance. Primitive sensors, commented Fleet Captain Vex High from her crystalline command ship. They don't even seem to know we're here yet. War Commander Vekmar studied the tactical display with the eye of an experienced hunter. Begin the advance. Standard formation. I want monitoring stations established at these coordinates within 6 hours. The massive fleet began moving deeper into human territory, their sensors probing ahead for signs of resistance. What they found instead was a series of small human ships that seemed to panic at their approach. The vessels immediately began retreating deeper into human space, transmitting what appeared to be frantic distress calls. They're running, observed Commander Zixtal of the Hegemony forces. Typical primitive behavior. They probably think they can outrun us to their home systems. Unknown to the aliens, those retreating ships were part of a carefully orchestrated plan. Lieutenant Danny Foster piloted one of the fleeing vessels, a modified scout ship called the Wraith. His job was to lead a specific group of alien cruisers, exactly where humanity wanted them to go. Danny's ship appeared on sensors as a standard human patrol vessel, lightly armed and definitely outmatched. What the aliens could not detect was the advanced stealth technology built into every component, the quantum communication array that kept him in constant contact with Terra Command, and the weapon systems that could punch through alien shields. Like paper. Ghost leader to all units, Danny transmitted on the encrypted channel. Package delivery in progress. Customers are following the breadcrumbs exactly as planned. The response came from Captain Jenny Walsh, commanding a squadron of ships that did not appear on any sensors. Understood, Ghost Leader. Kitchen is prepped and ready to serve. As the alien fleet advanced, they found themselves naturally drawn along specific routes through human space. The retreating human ships seemed to be following predictable patterns, falling back through asteroid fields and nebulae that would provide cover for their escape. The aliens followed, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. What they did not realize was that every asteroid field had been carefully prepared, every nebula thoroughly mapped and equipped with hidden weapons platforms. The human ships were not retreating randomly, but were leading the invaders through a maze of kill zones that had been decades in the making. Admiral Lisa Brooks watched the entire operation unfold from Terra Command, a facility hidden deep within the asteroid belt around Sol. The command center was carved into a massive asteroid, its walls lined with displays showing the positions of every ship in human space. Most of those ships were invisible to alien sensors, waiting in perfect silence for the moment to strike. Phase 1 complete, reported Colonel Rodriguez. The enemy is committed to their advance. All trap zones are ready. Admiral Brooks nodded, her expression calm despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. Signal all units. Operation Ghostwatch is now active. Rules of engagement are weapons free on my command. The aliens continued their advance, growing more confident with each passing hour. The human ships ahead of them seemed poorly organized, their retreat chaotic and desperate. War Commander Vekmar began to think this operation would be even easier than he had expected. Increase speed, he ordered. I want to catch some of those fleeing ships before they reach their colonies. A few prisoners might provide useful intelligence. His fleet responded immediately, the various alien vessels accelerating through space with the deadly grace of experienced predators. They were closing the distance to the human ships, their weapon systems coming online in preparation for the first engagement. Lieutenant Foster watched his sensors as the alien pursuers drew closer to the trap zone. He was leading 12 enemy cruisers directly into asteroid field Sigma 7, where Captain Walsh's squadron waited in perfect concealment. The asteroids in this field were not natural formations, but carefully positioned weapons platforms, each one capable of destroying a capital ship. 30 seconds to activation zone, Foster announced to his team. Remember, when the trap springs, we drop the act and show them what humans really fight like. The alien cruisers entered the asteroid field, their sensors focused on the fleeing human ship ahead of them. They were so concentrated on their prey that they failed to notice the subtle energy signatures hidden among the rocks, the weapon systems that were already targeting their hulls. The death that waited in the darkness of space. Wargash Commander Vekmar watched the pursuit from his flagship, satisfied with the progress of his forces. The humans were behaving exactly as he had expected, running scared from superior firepower. Soon they would learn what happened to species that defied the Galactic Council. All units, prepare for first contact with human forces, he announced to his fleet. Remember, we want some of them alive for questioning. Try not to destroy everything. The aliens had no idea that they were about to face an enemy that had been preparing for this moment since the day they first met galactic civilization. Humanity had studied every alien species, analyzed their strengths and weaknesses, and designed weapons specifically to exploit their vulnerabilities. The retreating human ships were not running in panic, but were leading the invaders into a carefully prepared killing ground. Admiral Brooks watched the tactical display as the alien fleet spread out across multiple star systems, each group following what appeared to be fleeing human vessels. The trap was almost complete. In a few more minutes, the galaxy would learn what happened when you ignored warnings from a species that had spent millions of years learning to hunt in the dark. All units, stand by, she announced to the hidden human fleet. On my mark, we show them why they should have listened to our warnings. Admiral Brooks looked at the tactical display showing alien ships scattered across 12 star systems, each group pursuing what they believed were panicking human vessels. The trap had been set perfectly, with enemy forces divided and positioned, exactly where humanity wanted them. She activated the fleet-wide communication system, her voice carrying to hundreds of ships that existed in the darkness between stars. All units, this is Terra Command. The enemy has entered our house uninvited. Show them what humans do to unwelcome guests. Weapons free. Execute Operation Ghostwatch. The response was immediate and devastating. Across human space, asteroid fields that had appeared empty suddenly blazed with weapons fire. Hidden platforms that had been disguised as space debris revealed themselves as humanity's secret arsenal. The fleeing human ships stopped running and turned to face their pursuers with weapons that no alien had ever seen before. Lieutenant Danny Foster's ship, the Wraith, was the first to drop its disguise. The small scout vessel that had been leading alien cruisers through asteroid field Sigma 7 suddenly shimmered and revealed its true nature. Advanced stealth plating retracted to expose weapon systems that belonged on a ship 3 times its size. The modified engines that had been pretending to struggle with the pursuit now showed their real capability, accelerating the Wraith to speeds that made alien sensors scream warnings. Ghost leader to all units, Danny announced as his ship spun around to face the 12 alien cruisers that had been chasing him. Kitchen is open. Time to serve our guests. The alien cruisers, caught completely off guard, tried to react to the sudden change in their prey's behavior. Commander Zixtal, leading the hegemony squadron, watched in confusion as his sensors registered energy readings that should have been impossible for a human vessel. "What is that ship?" he demanded from his second-in-command. "Those power levels are off the charts." His question was answered when the Wraith opened fire. The weapons that emerged from its hidden bays were unlike anything in the galactic arsenal. Instead of the plasma beams or energy bolts that dominated space combat, the human ship fired solid projectiles that moved at 30% of light speed. The kinetic rounds struck the lead alien cruiser with the force of a small asteroid, punching through shields that were designed to stop energy weapons. The hegemony vessel, built like a floating fortress with armor that could withstand sustained plasma bombardment, crumpled like paper under the impact. The kinetic round passed completely through the ship, leaving a perfectly circular hole that vented atmosphere and crew into space. "Impossible," Zixtal whispered as he watched his flagship die around him. "No weapon can penetrate our defensive grid." The answer came from Captain Jenny Walsh's squadron, which materialized from the asteroids around the alien fleet like ghosts becoming solid. The Ghost-class destroyers had been hiding in perfect silence, their stealth technology rendering them invisible to every sensor system the aliens possessed. Now they revealed themselves in all their deadly glory. The human ships looked nothing like the crude vessels the aliens had been expecting. Their hulls were sleek and predatory, covered in adaptive camouflage that shifted and flowed like living metal. The weapons they carried were clearly designed by a species that understood the true nature of space combat. "All ghost units engage at will," Captain Walsh ordered as her ship, the Phantom, locked onto the largest alien cruiser. "Remember, we want some survivors to carry the message back home." The ghost destroyers opened fire with weapons that defied galactic understanding of physics. Quantum torpedoes that could phase through solid matter struck alien ships from the inside, bypassing shields and armor entirely. Plasma cannons that operated on principles unknown to galactic science cut through alien hulls like heated blades. Through ice, but it was the kinetic weapons that truly shocked the invaders. The aliens had built their entire military philosophy around energy shields and plasma weapons. systems that had dominated galactic warfare for thousands of years. They had never encountered an enemy that still used solid projectiles, never imagined that such primitive weapons could be refined to such devastating effect. The human kinetic rounds moved too fast for alien targeting systems to track. Hit 2. Hard for alien armor to stop, and came from directions that alien sensors could not predict. Ships that had survived dozens of battles against galactic powers found themselves torn apart by weapons that seemed to ignore every defensive system they possessed. War Commander Thikmar watched the slaughter from his flagship, the World Breaker, as reports poured in from across the fleet. His forces were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should not have existed. Status report, he demanded from his tactical officer, a younger Korthax named Brekon, who was staring at his displays in horror. War Commander, we have lost 60% of our fleet in the first 10 minutes of combat. The humans are using weapons and tactics we have never encountered. Our shields are useless against their kinetic rounds, and their ships appear and disappear at will. Thekmar's claws dug gouges in the metal of his command chair. How is this possible? Our intelligence. Our EPORTS showed primitive human technology. Their ships should not be capable of this level of performance. The answer came from the human vessels themselves. As the battle raged across multiple star systems, it became clear that everything the aliens thought they knew about humanity was wrong. The ships they had observed in public were museum pieces, antiques deliberately displayed to create a false impression of human capabilities. The real human fleet was a nightmare of advanced technology and brutal efficiency. Stealth systems that rendered entire squadrons invisible. Weapons that could strike from impossible ranges with perfect accuracy. Defensive systems that seemed to predict alien attacks before they happened. Captain Ryan Mitchell, commanding the heavy cruiser Retribution, watched his tactical display as alien ships died by the dozen. His vessel had been disguised as a cargo hauler until the moment the trap was sprung, and now it was demonstrating why the aliens should have been more careful about what they considered harmless. Target the Valian command ship, he ordered. His weapons officer. Let's show them what happens when you ignore human warnings. The Retribution's main gun was a masterpiece of human engineering, a magnetic accelerator that could fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The round it sent toward the Valian flagship was a solid tungsten rod weighing 2 tons, moving fast enough to punch through a moon. The Valian ship, with its elegant curves and sophisticated energy shields, simply ceased to exist when the round struck. The kinetic impact was so violent that it created a brief flash of fusion, turning the graceful vessel into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. Counselor Zex Thul, commanding the Valian fleet from a secondary vessel, watched his flagship die in a burst of artificial sunlight. His scales had turned the deep black of terror, an emotion his species rarely experienced. Retreat, he ordered his surviving ships. All units, full retreat. We cannot fight weapons like these. But retreat was not an option. The human ships had appeared not just in the battle zones, but along every escape route. The aliens found themselves trapped in a web of death that had been carefully prepared over decades. Every system they might flee to was occupied by human forces, every jump point covered by weapons that could destroy them before they could escape. The slaughter continued for 3 hours. When it finally ended, the alien fleet that had entered human space with such confidence was reduced to scattered wreckage and a handful of survivors. The humans had allowed exactly 12 ships to escape, one from each star system where battles had been fought. Admiral Brooks watched the tactical display as the surviving alien vessels limped away from human space, their hulls scarred and their crews traumatized. The message they would carry back to the Galactic Council was more valuable than their destruction would have been. All units, stand down, she announced to the human fleet. Mission accomplished. Begin recovery operations for alien survivors. The battle had lasted only 3 hours, but it had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The aliens had learned that humanity was not the primitive species they had believed, and the price of that education had been paid in blood and burning ships. War Commander Vekmar, his flagship crippled but intact, stared at the tactical display showing the destruction of his fleet. Around him, his crew worked frantically to repair critical systems while human ships watched from the darkness, ready to finish what they had started if necessary. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his tactical officer. 17, War Commander. "All heavily damaged. The humans could destroy us easily if they chose to." Vekmar nodded slowly, understanding the message that humanity was sending. They were being allowed to survive not out of mercy, but so they could return to the Galactic Council with the truth about human capabilities. The warning had been ignored, and the galaxy would never be the same. The prisoner transport vessel moved through space with the quiet efficiency that characterized all human military operations. Counselor Zexthil sat in a cell that was comfortable, but clearly designed to hold someone much stronger than himself. Staring through a transparent wall at the human ship that had become his temporary prison, Captain Ryan Mitchell entered the detention area, his footsteps echoing softly in the corridor. The human officer was tall and lean, with the kind of calm confidence that came from absolute certainty in his abilities. Behind him walked a woman in civilian clothes, her graying hair and tired eyes suggesting someone who had carried heavy responsibilities for a long time. "Counselor Zexthil," Captain Mitchell said, his voice polite but carrying an undertone of steel. "I hope you are comfortable. I would like you to meet Dr. Susan Hayes, the architect of humanity's defensive strategy." Zexthil's scales flickered between colors as he tried to process what he was seeing. The destruction of the alien fleet had been so complete, so overwhelming, that he was still struggling to understand how it had happened. The humans he had known were supposed to be primitive, their technology decades behind galactic standards. "I do not understand," he said, his musical voice carrying notes of confusion and fear. "Your species has been part of galactic civilization for only 2 centuries. We have observed your colonies, your ships, your military exercises. How is it possible that you possess such advanced weapons?" Dr. Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. "That is exactly what we wanted you to think, Counselor. Everything your people observed was carefully planned theater, designed to create a specific impression of human capabilities." She gestured to Captain Mitchell, who activated a holographic display in the corridor outside the cell. The image showed a timeline stretching back 200 years, marked with key events in human galactic history. When humanity first encountered galactic civilization, Dr. Hayes continued, "we learned a valuable lesson from our own history. The species that survived were not necessarily the strongest or the most advanced, but those that were the most adaptable and the most careful about revealing their true nature." The hologram shifted to show the early days of human expansion, when Earth's ships had seemed crude and primitive compared to alien technology. Zexthel remembered those days, when the Galactic Council had viewed humanity as another minor species to be integrated into their existing order. "You see, Counselor, humans learned long ago that predators who reveal their true capabilities too early often become targets for elimination. We studied your history, all of your histories, and we saw what happened to species that appeared too threatening too quickly." The display changed to show examples from galactic history. The Zephyrian Dominion, wiped out by a coalition of older species when their technology advanced too rapidly. The Nexus Collective reduced to client status after showing military capabilities that threatened established powers. The pattern was clear and consistent. "So we decided to play a different game," Dr. Hayes said, her voice taking on the tone of a teacher explaining a lesson to a slow student. We would let you see what you expected to see, while we prepared for the day when the charade would no longer be necessary. Captain Mitchell touched a control, and the hologram showed the true extent of human expansion. Instead of the 50 worlds that aliens believed humanity possessed, the display revealed thousands of hidden colonies, secret research stations, and military installations scattered throughout dozens of star systems. While your species saw a handful of human settlements, we were building a civilization that spanned hundreds of worlds. While you observed our crude cargo haulers and civilian transports, we were developing weapons and defensive systems that your scientists cannot even comprehend. Zexthul's scales had turned the pale light of shock as he stared at the display. The scope of the deception was staggering. Every interaction between humanity and galactic civilization had been carefully managed to maintain the illusion of human weakness. The mining ships you observed were actually mobile weapons platforms, Dr. Hayes continued. The research stations you ignored were developing technologies that would revolutionize warfare. The colonies you considered barely habitable were manufacturing centers for weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. The hologram showed cross-sections of human vessels, revealing the true nature of their construction. Ships that had appeared to be simple cargo haulers were actually sophisticated weapons platforms, their hulls filled with advanced systems that no alien sensor could detect. Your species made the same mistake that predators have been making for millions of years, Dr. Hayes said, her voice carrying a note of almost academic interest. You assumed that because we appeared weak, we actually were weak. You never considered that a species might have reasons for hiding its true capabilities. Captain. Mitchell stepped forward, his expression serious. Dr. Hayes developed what we called the Patience Protocol. Instead of responding to galactic threats with immediate military action, we would study our potential enemies, learn their weaknesses, and prepare countermeasures that would be deployed only when absolutely necessary. The display shifted to show detailed analyses of every major galactic species. The Korthak's reliance on energy shields that could be bypassed by kinetic weapons. The Valian preference for elegant but fragile ship designs that could not withstand sustained bombardment. The hegemony's overconfidence in their defensive systems. We spent 2 centuries learning how to kill you, Dr. Hayes said matter-of-factly. Every trade mission, every diplomatic exchange, every cultural interaction was an opportunity to gather intelligence about your military capabilities and identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Zexthul found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. But why? Why go to such lengths to deceive us? The Galactic Council welcomed humanity into galactic civilization. We offered you technology, trade partnerships, cultural exchange. Because we studied your history, Captain Mitchell replied. We saw what happened to species that trusted the Council's promises. The Altarian Republic reduced agricultural worlds after accepting Council protection. The Meridian Syndicate, stripped of their most advanced technologies and forced into economic dependence. The pattern was always the same. Dr. Hayes nodded, her expression growing colder. The Galactic Council does not welcome equals, Counselor. It integrates junior partners and client species. We decided that humanity would never accept such a role, so we prepared for the day when you would try to force us into it. The hologram changed to show the battle that had just concluded, displaying the true extent of the trap that had been prepared. Every asteroid field, every nebula, every seemingly empty region of space had been carefully prepared as a weapons platform or sensor array. The warnings we gave you were genuine, Dr. Hayes continued. We truly hoped that you would respect our territorial claims and allow us to maintain our facade of weakness. It would have been easier for everyone involved. But you chose to ignore our warnings, Captain Mitchell added. You decided that humans were too primitive to be taken seriously, too weak to resist galactic authority. That decision cost you 183 ships and approximately 50,000 lives. Zexthul stared at the tactical display showing the wreckage of the alien fleet. His own people had suffered terrible losses, but they were not alone. Every species that had participated in the invasion had paid a terrible price for their arrogance. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "What does humanity plan to do with this victory?" Dr. Hayes smiled, and this time there was something genuinely frightening in the expression. "Now, counselor, you and the other survivors return to your people and tell them exactly what you have learned. You explain that humanity is not the primitive species they believed, and that human space is no longer a suggestion, but a fact enforced by weapons that can destroy entire fleets. The galaxy will resist," Zexthul said, though his voice lacked conviction. The combined fleets of all council species could still overwhelm humanity through sheer numbers. Could they? Captain Mitchell asked, his tone suggesting that he knew something the alien did not. "Are you certain that the fleet you brought here represents the full extent of human military capabilities? After everything you have learned today, are you willing to bet your civilization on that assumption?" The question hung in the air like a threat. Zexthul realized that everything he thought he knew about humanity had been wrong, and if their military capabilities were this far beyond galactic understanding, there was no telling what other secrets they might possess. "The age of council dominance is over," Dr. Hayes said quietly. "A new era is beginning, one where humanity takes its rightful place among the stars. The warnings were ignored, and now the galaxy must live with the consequences of that choice." 6 months after the destruction of the council fleet, the same massive chamber that had witnessed humanity's final warning now held a very different kind of gathering. The 12 seats of the Galactic Council were occupied by the same alien representatives, but their postures and expressions had changed dramatically. Where once there had been arrogance and dismissal, now there was fear and uncertainty. Ambassador Kate Morrison walked across the polished floor toward the center of the chamber, but this time she was not alone. Behind her came a full diplomatic delegation, including military officers whose uniforms bore insignia that the aliens had learned to recognize with dread. Admiral Jake Sullivan, recently promoted after his role in Operation Ghostwatch, stood. At her right side, his presence a reminder of humanity's new military reality. The chamber itself had changed as well. Human ships now patrolled the systems around the Council homeworld, their stealth technology making them invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. The aliens had discovered that their most secure facilities were constantly watched by sensors they could not detect, their communications monitored by technology they could not understand. Kate activated her translation device, the familiar blue glow seeming somehow more ominous in the changed atmosphere of the chamber. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who no longer needed to ask for anything. "I come before you today not to deliver warnings, but to outline the new reality that your actions have created." The silence that followed was complete. No alien laughter, no dismissive comments, no casual arrogance. The survivors of the Council fleet had returned with stories that had shaken every member species to their core. The humans were not what they had appeared to be, and the galaxy would never be the same. Zexthul, his scales a permanent pale gray since his return from human captivity, spoke first. "Ambassador Morrison, the Valian Empire wishes to formally apologize for our role in the recent misunderstanding. We had no knowledge of humanity's true capabilities and meant no offense by our actions." "Misunderstanding?" Kate repeated, her tone carrying just enough edge to make several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Counselor Zexthul, your fleet entered sovereign human space with the express intention of establishing military occupation. That was not a misunderstanding. That was an act of war." War Commander Thekmar, his massive frame somehow diminished by the knowledge of what human weapons could do to his people, cleared his throat. The Korthak's supremacy accepts full responsibility for our actions. We underestimated human resolve and capabilities. We are prepared to discuss terms for peaceful coexistence. Kate nodded, but her expression remained neutral. That is good to hear, War Commander. However, the time for discussion has passed. The Terran Federation is not here to negotiate our place in galactic civilization. We are here to inform you of the new order that your actions have made necessary. Admiral Sullivan stepped forward, his uniform bearing the decorations of a career spent preparing for this moment. The 50-light-year boundary around Earth is no longer a request or a suggestion. It is now an enforced reality. Any vessel entering human space without explicit authorization will be destroyed without warning. Quickster's 4 arms gestured in what his species considered a submissive posture. But Admiral, such a vast territory contains thousands of worlds, many with resources that the galaxy depends upon. Surely some accommodation can be reached. The accommodation was offered 6 months ago, Kate replied. You chose to ignore it. The resources you speak of are now under human control, and they will be administered according to human interests. Trade agreements may be negotiated, but only with species that demonstrate proper respect for human sovereignty. The implications of her words sent ripples of alarm through the chamber. The alien civilizations had built their economies around the assumption that no single species could control such vast territories. The idea that humans might restrict access to entire star systems was terrifying to species that had grown dependent. On galactic trade. Counselor Vex High of the Crystalline Collective spoke with the musical tones of her species, though the melody was discordant with stress. Ambassador Morrison, the Collective has always maintained peaceful relations with humanity. Surely our trade partnerships can continue as before. Kate consulted a datapad, her movements deliberate and unhurried. The Collective voted unanimously to support the invasion of human space. Your peaceful relations did not prevent you from contributing 37 ships to the fleet that attacked our territory. Those ships and their crews are now debris floating in our space. The alien representatives exchanged glances, each one remembering their confidence 6 months ago when they had voted to ignore human warnings. The price of that arrogance was becoming clear, and it was higher than any of them had imagined. What does humanity want? Zexthal asked, his voice barely audible. What are your terms for peace? Kate smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. Peace, Counselor Zexthal, is not something you can negotiate with us. Peace is something you must earn through your actions. The Terran Federation will maintain peaceful relations with any species that respects our territorial claims and treats humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs. And if we refuse? War Commander Thekmar asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Admiral Sullivan activated a holographic display that showed the current deployment of human forces throughout the galaxy. The aliens stared in shock as they realized that human ships were already positioned in dozens of systems they had considered secure, monitoring their activities and ready to strike at any moment. The question is not whether you will refuse, Sullivan said quietly. The question is whether you understand that refusal is no longer an option. The galaxy has seen what happens when human warnings are ignored. I doubt any species will make that mistake again. The display shifted to show the wreckage of the Council fleet, the twisted metal and debris that had once been the pride of 6 different civilizations. The message was clear and unmistakable. Dr. Alex Carter, now serving as humanity's chief science advisor, stepped forward to address the chamber. The Terran Federation is prepared to share certain technological advances with species that demonstrate genuine commitment to peaceful coexistence. Our medical technology, our agricultural systems, our communication networks, these things can benefit the entire galaxy. But Kate continued, access to human technology comes with responsibilities. Any species that wishes to maintain relations with humanity must accept that we are no longer the junior partner in galactic civilization. We are equals, and we expect to be treated as such. The aliens absorbed this information with varying degrees of shock and resignation. The old order, where established species could dictate terms to newcomers, was clearly ending. In its place was emerging a new reality where humanity held power that none of them could challenge. Vex High made one last attempt to salvage something from the situation. Perhaps we could establish a new council, one that includes human representation at the highest levels. A partnership between equals, as you suggest. Kate considered this for a moment, then shook her head. The Galactic Council had its chance to treat humanity as equals. You chose instead to treat us as subjects to be controlled. The Terran Federation will establish its own relationships with individual species, based on mutual respect and shared benefit. The Council is finished, Admiral Sullivan added. Its authority was based on the assumption that no single species could challenge the combined might of its members. That assumption has been proven false. The chamber fell silent as the full implications of humanity's position became clear. The Galactic Council, which had governed relations between species for thousands of years, was being dissolved by a species that had been considered primitive just months before. War Commander Thikmar spoke one last time, his voice carrying the weight of defeat. What of those who fought against you? What of the survivors who must return to their people with news of this defeat? Kate's expression softened slightly, showing the first hint of something that might have been compassion. Those who fought against us will be remembered as warriors who faced a superior enemy with courage. There is no shame in defeat when the odds are impossible. The shame belongs to those who sent them to die based on false assumptions and arrogant pride. The galaxy is changing, she continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. Humanity is taking its place among the stars, not as subjects or junior partners, but as equals. Those who adapt to this new reality will find us generous allies. Those who resist will discover that our patience has limits. Admiral Sullivan activated his communicator, sending a signal that would be received by human ships throughout the galaxy. All stations, this is Admiral Sullivan. The Terran Federation's position has been made clear to the former Galactic Council. Begin implementing the new patrol schedules. Human space is now officially closed to unauthorized traffic. The aliens watched in silence as the human delegation prepared to leave. The old order was ending, and a new one was beginning. The warnings about human space had been ignored, and now the galaxy would live with the consequences of that choice. As Kate Morrison walked toward the chamber exit, she turned back one final time to address the stunned alien representatives. The invitation to peaceful coexistence remains open to any species willing to accept the new reality. But remember, we warned you about human space. You chose not to listen. That choice has consequences, and those consequences will shape the galaxy for generations to come. The chamber doors closed behind the human delegation, leaving the aliens to contemplate a future where humanity was no longer the weakest species in the galaxy, but potentially the strongest. The warnings had been ignored, and now they would all learn to live with the results of that fatal mistake.